Hello, and welcome to Outnumbered the podcast. I'm Audrey.
And I'm Bonnie. We are experienced moms to a combined total of 19 children.
In our weekly episodes, we explore relatable topics using our perspectives of humor and chaos.
Tune in for advice and encouragement to gain more joy in your parenting journey.
Hey, friends, we are back and we are excited that we have another guest with us this week. So we have Melissa with us, and she is from Family Brand, and we are so excited to share her amazingly unique take on raising your family with you guys today. And so we brought her on because we really think you guys don't want to miss out on what she has to share.
That's right. And before we get into an intro, we obviously have to break the ice with something hilarious. Do you have a hilarious mom moment you can share with us, Melissa?
Yes. This is a good one to just jump right in into the episode with, I guess. I was not raised to be open about like sexual development, puberty, just sex in general. So it's been really important to me that I try and raise my kids where they can come to me with questions. We can talk about those things. So one hilarious and proud mother moment for me was when my oldest son turned 12. He came to me and he said, "Mom," he was like so excited. He was like, "I have my first nut hair." And I was like cracking up because I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's so funny." And I am so happy that he feels like he can share this moment with me.
Oh, that is a very proud mom moment. And also you're like rolling on the floor.
Yes.
Thank you for that announcement, son.
Oh, that is so great. So tell us more about yourself and about this awesome family, open communicators of family that you have.
Yes, we're striving for that. So myself and my husband, we live in Arizona, and we just recently moved to rural Arizona. So that's a new adventure that we're having. We have five kids, two boys that are in junior high, 8th and 7th graders, and then a girl who's in 4th grade, a boy in 1st, and then our youngest will go to kindergarten next year.
Wow, that is awesome. That is a good age range. So how many years are there between the oldest and the youngest?
So let's see. About
Trick
9.
Question.
I know. I'm like trying to do the math in my head. I think that 9 years between the oldest and the youngest.
That's awesome. Sounds like a beautiful family. Okay, so we want to dive in a little bit about your business, this Family Brand business. Can you give us a little glimpse into what it is and what led you to developing it?
Yes. So Family Brand was this realization that my husband has owned his own business for a long time, and we realized he brings like so much intentionality to that business. And it was this realization that we had that some of that same intentionality we're not bringing to our family. He helps businesses develop their messaging and their vision, I guess you could say. So over and over again, he was asking companies these questions like, what do you want to be known for? Like, what's most important to you, et cetera. And we realized, I don't even know if we could answer these questions for our family. So that's like, I guess the technical, like how it started. But I think the reason why that was so important to us, like developing this family brand, was my husband and I were separated we'd been married about 4 years, and we were separated for a few months, and we were seriously considering getting divorced. And we realized we of course decided to stay together and work through it, but we realized, okay, none of this is going to happen just by accident. Like, we're not going to create this family that we want, this marriage that we want, just by accident. Like, it's going to require some real intentionality and purposeful living. And so a Family Brand, I think, was just kind of an extension of that in a way.
That is awesome. Intention is a word that we use a lot on our podcast because it's so easy just to slip into what is happening to you as a family and the day-to-day, and it brings so much to you. And without intention, without a goal, without aiming somewhere, it's just so easy to get, discouraged and overwhelmed. And when you're outnumbered like we are, like all three of us are
Yeah.
here, it's just so easy to not have intention in your life. And so we are so excited to talk to you about this more. One thing that you talk about that we really really love on, okay, so you guys, we forgot to share that Melissa has a podcast as well with her husband Chris. And if you've listened to any of those episodes, you'll be hooked because we like, they're amazing. It's really amazing. And so one thing, when we were looking through your podcast and listening to it, we found
Thank
that
you.
you guys are really really committed to helping people strengthen their families. And that is just amazing, because in a world that seems to be trying to weaken the family, like that is the goal, how can we be intentional and courageous about strengthening our own families?
Yes, I think I love that you use the word courageous, because I think it absolutely does require courage. And Chris and I, we've gone back and forth a ton, like wondering, okay, what do we want for families, like that maybe come through Family Brand? What is the outcome we want? And that actually is what we really desire for anyone that is coming, listening to our podcast, or we do have like a program as well. But anyone that touches, that we touch or connect with, I want them to leave like feeling courageous. I want to inspire courage in families, because it does require, when you're looking at how people are doing things in the world, usually strengthening your family might require you to do something different than what a lot of people are doing, and that absolutely requires courage, to go against what people are maybe telling you or what you're seeing around you. But I think it starts with, strengthening your family. I think starts with knowing what is important to our family, like what do we want to be known for, and then that leap of courage comes after that little bit of clarity.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We have another episode where we talk about parenting, specifically mothering with intention, and it sounds like it
Mhm.
goes right along with that. In that sometimes we have to make choices that are unpopular, or we don't even really know why we're making them, but it just feels like the right choice for our family. And very often that requires some courage,
Oh,
doing some scary things, doing maybe even some research and learning about something that's different, or maybe not how we were raised, and diving into that. So I love that. I love that aspect. So tell us a little bit more about running your family like a business. So you mentioned kind of like looking for maybe a mission statement or like an overarching purpose for your family. What are the other analogies that you've got there?
Yeah, I feel like I read an article recently that talked about how there's so much information and so many studies have been done, like how to build businesses and build businesses that last. And there's so much information out there, but it's not necessarily ever applied to family. That's just not how. I mean, the families aren't hiring people to do these studies and do this research. And so, but it is there. I believe like that same research can apply. It's like how to build and strengthen teams, and a family is absolutely a team. How to have engagement, in the workplace. I want engagement, in my home. How do I increase engagement? Um, yeah, I think that some of these cadences that businesses have, like we are having maybe quarterly reviews, or we're having weekly meetings, like check-ins. I think those can all be applied to families to bring more focus and intention.
that is really cool. I love to think of it like that. I've got this cousin, and she posts every year on social media about their family. They have a family board meeting once a year, and it's usually at the beginning of the year, and they sit around in clipboards, and everybody has a turn and they talk. And I was like, this is such a cool thing, because they're like being very intentional about and very family oriented about what they're doing with their family this year. And it's so cute, like even the little ones are sitting there with the clipboard, and they're very serious, like this is a board meeting, a family board meeting. But it
Totally.
yeah.
Yeah. I think little, like, you might think that, oh, my youngest kids won't be interested in this type of thing, but I found, yeah, even my youngest is 5 now, but even when she was 2 and 3, like she's excited to be there and be part of the conversation and wants in on it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you think about it. If you try to run a business like we sometimes let our families run, there would be no success. But then, flipping it on the other side, like just thinking about it, it's really like a really a long path you can go down, thinking about being intentional about running your family like a business so that success is the end goal. That's really
Mhm.
impressive.
Well, one thing I wanted to mention here is it seems like when we approach our families with this real incredible intention, what we're doing is we are defining the entity that is our family, right? Because sometimes we just kind of create this family and we think it's just something we fell into, right? Well, these kids just came and no, we were very intentional of in choosing our spouse and in planning our children, and we should be communicating that to our children and to the rest of the family. Like, this is how we met. This is how we created our family, physically. This is how we created our home physically and then emotionally, spiritually, whatever. To communicate that really instills this sense of belonging. And that's what kids need over anything else is a sense of purpose, a sense of belonging. And when they get that from their family where they're supposed to get it,
Mm-hmm.
well, how powerful is that, right? How many challenges will they be able to get through so much easier because they know who they are and where they belong?
Totally. And that there's so much research about that very thing, that like the number one need of people is belonging. And you're right, the family, if the family can provide that sense of belonging, like that is absolutely, I believe, the best place for a child to feel that sense of belonging. And I also love what you're saying about telling your children the stories of maybe how you met and how the family came to be. Also a ton of research about the importance of telling family stories and how that creates identity, um, within adults and especially children as they're growing and developing and kind of learning, who am I and where do I fit into this big picture of life and our family.
That is so cool. I love to hear stories from like my ancestors and like their stories. And I want to, like, it makes me think to be more intentional, like what stories are my kids going to be telling their grandkids, about us and about their family of origin. That's a really neat thing to think about. So one thing you talk about in your work is taking back your family's time. I think that is like what every family struggles with. So like, is this too good to be true, or how can we really make this happen, taking back our family time?
I know it is so hard because Chris and I were just having a conversation last night actually about this very thing, because it seems like some time's gone by and we've kind of fallen into some old like habits and routines, and the kids have been playing sports and they're getting home late, and I was telling him I feel like we're not connected like we sometimes have been, like I want to be. So I think it requires, well, a few things to take back your family's time. It requires like a vision for what you want, like what do you actually want as a family. And then from there, it requires that courage that we were talking about, like courage to, maybe there are some things we need to say no to, maybe there are some things we need to add in. But I think that's kind of where where it starts. um and then from there you can fill in, like, no, we're gonna be home as a family on Tuesday nights or whatever it is. um but it does definitely require courage and some decision making.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. One thing that we've always prioritized with our family is supper together, supper time
Hmm.
together, and that's something that, like, it was hard when you have little kids and they're just tired, and it's at the end of the day, and you're tired because you made supper after taking care of kids all day. But as our family has grown, that's where the reward has really come in, because sitting around the table talking together, like with your kids and your teenagers as they grow up, that has just become really, really a time that we protect and we cherish, because
Hmm.
it does so much for our family. It's the time when we connect and we're together. So I definitely support, finding your place that your family can connect and grab back that time.
Totally.
Okay, so Melissa, I let's say that you're one of our listeners is here and saying, yes, my family needs this. I definitely want to get on track, be more intentional about creating this brand, this family that really feels like a sense of belonging. Do you have a couple of steps that they can get started on? Where would they start to do this?
Yes, I would start. I'm trying to decide. I have two things going in my mind. I'm like, which
Yeah,
one do I
yeah.
want to say? um So I think it does ultimately start with maybe a realization that, okay, I like the path that we're on and I'm going to continue doing what we're doing. Or maybe it requires like a real honest look of like, I want something different, or think we could make some tweaks. Um, so I think it starts there with a real honest like look at how you think things are going, and are you on the path, to end up ultimately where you want to be. Um, and then I think it requires the vision. Like, so maybe you've decided, no, I think we can make some tweaks, but what actually do you want as a family? What do you want to be known for out in the world? Um, I think absolutely like that sense of belonging is something that every family should strive for. So maybe asking yourself, how can we create more belonging in our home? And I think that looks like every member of the family being valued for who they are as they are. So how can you increase those feelings in your home? And then it's kind of the same conversation that I feel like we're having. And then just like the making sure that what you want is a priority in your life. Like I just
Mhm.
mentioned before, my kids have gotten really busy with sports lately, and I realized like, okay, we're like way over here. Time to like take back the family a little bit. Like we need to be having those dinners together again. Need to be having those like meaningful connections.
Mhm.
We like to do kid dates where we take like one-on-one kind of kid dates, and I'm like, oh, we haven't done that for a while. Let's like bring it back, like take back our family from all these things that we've gotten busy with.
Oh, that's so great. So let me see if I understood. I'm trying to. So it sounds like first you're saying evaluate where you are, right? If you
Yep.
see that you need to make a change. Second, decide where you want to go, some sort of a goal, like
Hmm.
direction. And then third, prioritize it, right? And it sounds like the prioritizing step has to be done multiple times, like constantly.
Yeah,
Is that true?
absolutely. I think you do it once and then it's like, yeah, a decision that you keep making, and then you realize like, oh, we're we're way over here again. Like
Yeah.
let's come back to it, and not getting like frustrated with that. Just knowing like, okay, this has happened again. Like let's reevaluate,
Hmm.
and it's all okay.
Kind of like those tiny course corrections all the time, right? Like we do that with our
Hmm.
own lives. We have fitness goals or spiritual goals or whatever. We're kind of constantly course correcting when we see that we've gone off track, but we got to do the same thing with our family. It's great.
Okay, so let's zoom in for a second on that one about vision. Okay, because that's something, so we talk about that a lot on this podcast because my husband and I have what we refer to as our 20-year vision. And we want to, like, we use that all the time in our parenting. Like, how is this going to affect us in 20 years? Or how is this going to affect this child or our family relationship? That kind of thing. But for those families who maybe are struggling to find a vision, like, where do you even start? Do you have any counsel for people on that?
Yeah, that is hard because that decision or that statement feels like this is going to be it for the rest of our lives. Like we better get it right. Um, so my advice would be to, well, first of all, to not let it feel like such a big thing. Like just maybe make your current best thinking. Like what is it that we, and maybe I would ask myself this question. This is how I like to view vision is like what do we want to be known for, rather than like where do we want to be, I guess. It makes it a little bit easier for me to wrap my mind around, I guess. So like when someone's talking about our family, say 20 years from now, and they were to think about, my last name is Smith, if they were to think about the Smith family, like what would we want them to say about us? And then create from there. So for example, ours, what we call our family vision, is we are committed to elevate and inspire. And so I'm telling my kids, as they're having interactions at school or at home, and even myself, like when I maybe don't want to show up, I ask myself like, no, I'm committed like to elevate and inspire. Or if there's, again, my kids at school, like recently my son was going on a camp out, and I said, hey, just remember, like and we come up with this together. This is not something that Chris and I just decide for our family. Like we sit down in a family setting, and my kids are old enough to do this. If your kids are little, like it would just be you or your partner, your spouse. But it's something that we're all like on board with. Like, no, we want to elevate and inspire, whatever that may look like in each situation, but continuing to hold ourselves accountable to that.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. I love that. And so that's kind of the reminder you give them when they go out the door, right? Or they go to a new situation is remember, the Smiths are known as
Yeah,
people who elevate
we're
and inspire.
we're committed, yep, to elevate and inspire.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's really beautiful. It's beautiful.
that one is awesome. Okay, so you and Chris have a course, right, that people can take about developing, creating, and this vision and like a brand for their family. That's correct, isn't it? Can you tell us a little bit about that for a second?
Yes, absolutely. We do, yeah, we do have a program, and you can find it on our website, familybrand.com. But it walks you through creating your family brand, basically, and we call it the Strengthen Your Family program. But it helps you kind of look through some of these conversations we've already been having. Like, who is your family been? Like, what family stories are you going to tell your children? What of your family history are you wanting to bring into your family today and make sure is passed on and carried on? And then it's developing that vision and those values, and then also we have a really easy system that you can plug into. Like, okay, how are we've developed this family narrative, we've developed these values. Now what do we do with them? How do we implement them into our family so that this is something that, a brand that we're living and breathing every day, and it's not just this cool exercise that we did this one time.
Yeah, that is awesome. The continuation of something
Yes.
that really inspired you. So we want people definitely to hear that and check that out. But I also have to come back to the fact that you have a podcast, because Bonnie and I both know how much labor of love that a podcast is, because you're putting free content out there, like on a regular basis, weekly basis. You guys do weekly like us, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and it's like you have to be committed to that. You have to have a purpose for why you're doing that. And for us, it was that we wanted to help young overwhelmed moms or families that are outnumbered, like, because we were both there, and so we want to
Mm-hmm.
put all our knowledge and information out there, and we don't care if we never make a dime for it.
No, I love that. What a great resource.
Yeah, but you guys also are doing the same thing. Yours is a really great resource for anybody looking to improve their marriage and their family. So, just like, kind of, this is like a selfish personal question here, but why did you guys decide to use podcast as your format to put this out there for people?
Yes, so I guess it was a personal experience that I had. I used to work as a nurse, and then when I thought I kind of have been stay at home mom for the majority of my kids growing up, and I always thought, oh, when they're older, I'll go back to working as a nurse. So maybe like 3 or 4 years ago, I heard a podcast, and on this podcast, they were talking about it's basically like finding direction in your life, and specifically around like allowing God to help you like find direction. And they posed this interesting question, and they said, instead of praying to know like what should I do, like do this, do that, they posed a question like, what if you started asking like, God, how can I build your kingdom? And I was like, what an interesting question. Like I think my next thing is nursing, when my kids are a little bit older. But what if it's something else? And so I started like asking God, okay, I'm going to ask you this question. Like, how can I build your kingdom? And it like makes me emotional every time when I like relive it. But I just had this cool experience that was like, okay, you can build my kingdom by building families. And we had kind of been talking about this idea of family brand anyway. Chris and I had been in this conversation, but at that moment I felt like, okay, this wasn't just something for us. This is like something for others, like that we are meant to share with the world. And I don't know what it turns into, what it looks like, but I feel like, we started with the podcast because we're like, okay, how can we get a message of strengthening families out to people? And it just felt, initially that a podcast was a way to reach people about how they can go all in on their family and strengthen their family, because as we all know, like, it is challenging to raise a family today, and it requires courage and it requires faith, and sometimes it feels really lonely. So I think anyone speaking out, like, in favor of family and how to do that, I think it's like invaluable right now.
Yeah, that is amazing. And you have such an authentic story to back up what you're teaching, because your family started basically broken, and then you repaired it and strengthened it and built it into an amazing family brand. And so I love that you have that authenticity to back up what you're teaching others.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, Melissa. What a beautiful story. Okay, so to wrap up, I had one last question. Now, we
Yeah.
love to talk to our listeners who are predominantly younger moms who like to feel kind of overwhelmed, outnumbered, stressed out, right?
Mhm.
What would you have to say to those who just feel like, oh gosh, maybe developing this family brand or being intentional with my family seems like one more thing on the list of things I'm not doing? How can we speak to them and give them a little bit of confidence that they can do it?
Yes. And I think there's so much competing, like, for our times as mothers. Like, that is such a real concern. Like, I feel it myself all the time. But I think that, I guess what I would say is, it's not something that, um, like, in a business, if you invest in your brand, it's like, oh, you'll get this, like, great return on your money and this and that. So that it's not like you can measure some things. Like, you invest in your family for like 30 years and it's like, is this going to pay off? But I firmly believe that any investment that you're making into your family, such as this, like, as far as, and I'm not even saying like, um my family brand thing, I'm saying any investment that you're willing to make into your family, as far as like getting clear and getting, like, taking intentional movement in some direction, will there'll be like the dividends will be more than you can even imagine. But it is hard because you get so stuck in the day to day and just getting through dinner time and bedtime. But I think if you can, here's this word again, courage, like, look up for a minute and just maybe ask those questions, like, what do we want to be known for? Are we on the path that we want to be? Like, that will take you where you want to go as a family.
Oh, that's so good. It reminds me of something we hear a lot as entrepreneurs, because Audrey and I are both entrepreneurs as well. And we often hear the recommendation to remember to work on your business and not just in your business. And the family is just the same way. Sometimes we get so caught up in the right? The laundry and the dishes and the picking the kids up and all these things, that we forget to zoom out and work on the family, which is the structure and the intentionality and the purpose and that vision. That is so much more important than the laundry and the dishes, although those have to get done. But
Yes.
to take that time to create a framework so you know where your family is headed. Oh, I love that. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Oh, Melissa, thank you so much for coming on and sharing with our listeners your great wisdom and inspiring encouragement for everybody to work on their family and to strengthen their family and be courageous about it. Can you tell our listeners where they can find you on the internet, so that they can learn more?
Yes, you can go to familybrand.com, and our podcast is called Family Brand, and sometimes I post to Instagram. It's called Our Family Brand, OUR, Our Family Brand.
I'm Bonnie.
I'm Audrey, and we're outnumbered.
Thanks for listening, friends. Click the link in the show notes to subscribe to our email and never miss another episode.
Show us some love by leaving a review on iTunes or sharing the podcast with a friend. Thanks for all your support. We'll talk to you next week. Melissa, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, you finish up, because I'm about to wrap it up.
No, I really don't know what I was going to say. Go ahead.
You fit right in here.
Where was I?